And welcome, everybody, to I am Shally.
And I'm Melly.
So if you were a bit confused, I think that fits into the theme today.
Yes.
Because we are unpacking. So Melly and Shally is all about unpacking, making things simpler to understand. And if you were confused of who's Melly and who's Shally, a lot of people stand in front of a whole lot of different oils and look at them and think,
What's going on? Like, what?
what oil am I supposed to use, and is it the right oil, and or should it be the oil that's got the highest price or the lowest price, or why is there so many 15W50s and all these different kind of things? So hope we're going to take this episode and make it a little bit easier for everyone.
Yeah, so as Mel mentioned, it's all about the basics of oil. And if we get a little bit confusing, just bear in mind with us, we can explain why oils are being formulated and the ever demand of new technology also enhancing the oil. So yeah, there's a good show to look forward to. And yeah, let's kickstart that, Mel.
Right, so I know I was at a tribologist course and was very fortunate to take this course, and I'll never forget the words with our trainer or
tribologist.
Piet Hofman. He looked at us and he said, a lot of people look at oil and they go, if it's wet and it's slippery, it's right to use.
It's good oil. Yeah.
So, and that's so wrong because there's so much in oil. Oil is not just oil. There are so many different things in oil that is important. And if you understand or just to have a little bit of a better idea on oil, what we want to do today is make it easier for you to make a choice and decide, and also make an informed decision. Not just decide on oils because of a brand name, but know a little bit to make sure that whatever equipment you're going to use it in, that equipment is going to last longer because you use the right oil. So let's start off. I think one of the things is I know a lot of people have all these ways of deciding if it's a good oil or not. Have you seen it, Shally?
Many times.
So what have you come across?
Well, the ultimate thing is, let's break it down to what is the fundamentals of oil, what it should do. So therefore we have the basic functions of oil. And if we just look at that, the function of oil inevitably is to lubricate. So ultimately, if you think of it, I can use anything to lubricate, but it doesn't mean that that oil is compatible with your engine or wherever you want to use it. And that is the most important thing to understand, and that is why we're going to unpack this today. So yeah, the first aspect will be to lubricate, and by lubricating we mean actually the hydrocarbons doing all the work for you from the base oil's perspective. So not to go into much technical detail, but just to give you a rough overview. The second point will be to clean as well. So a lot of people would not understand why you have a cleaning agent inside the oil, and this is generally our dispersant and detergents inside there. So what it does is eventually when you have a little bit soot or particles, contamination building up, it just takes that particles, suspend it in the oil and take it to the oil filter to be able to clean the surfaces, the friction surfaces acting. So I'm not sure if a lot of people actually know that.
Okay, so now you've said, okay, so functions of oil is number one is to lubricate, which
Yes.
I think was obvious for a lot of
Yeah.
us. So we thought that's all it is supposed to do is to lubricate. That's where the wet and slippery comes from.
Yes.
So you say now it has to clean, okay, and what else?
So also one of the amazing functions is it has to cool. I'm not sure if a lot of people know, but the actual heat transfer process inside the engine, the oil removes 20% of that. So it's not all down to your coolant. The oil also has effect on the heat transfer process. And yeah, it's quite amazing to see that as well, because you would never actually realize that that's one of the processes the oil has to go through as well.
So if you say cool, so it must take the heat away from the engine.
Yes.
And then be able to also get rid of that temperature very soon so that it can keep on keeping the engine cool.
Yes.
All right. And is that just those three or?
No. So one of the other ones is also to protect. So what we mean by protect is there are additive package inside there. That's either your extreme pressure additives or your friction modifiers. And these are the chemical makeup of the oil inside that help to protect the surfaces, the friction surfaces, to ensure there's less wear, as well as no corrosion and antioxidants or oxidation of the oil occurring. So that really enhances that process as well.
Okay, and then I know, I think one of the other properties of oil is to seal, correct?
Definitely.
So you have all these seals in the vehicle itself, and if the oil needs to be able to lubricate also the seals to make sure that the oil pressure and all the oil also stays inside the engine.
Yeah, so that's the whole point of a seal. It must be remaining in the engine. So yeah, we also have a seal rejuvenation property inside the oils as well, just to enhance the seal rejuvenation of it, so it can be it has a long life and it doesn't become brittle or crack.
Okay, so there are actually 5 functions of oil. So it is so important that that all of them have to be done, because
Yes.
let's say, for an example, you have an oil that doesn't cool properly, then the oil is going to reach a temperature that's much higher than the normal,
Yes.
and that's going to break down
Break
the
down
oil
the
much
base oil,
quicker,
yes, yeah.
because the balance in the oil is not correct.
That's correct, yeah.
Right, so that's amazing. I mean, I think just by looking at the functions, now you can see that there's actually 5 different functions. I mean, I know how many people I've come across, and I would, for an example, take 3 different oils and put those oils in front of them, and they would want to look at the oil and establish which one looks the best.
Yeah.
Or I know some people have actually put it in their finger.
It's like, oh, this is great oil. I can just feel it.
I have also had people smell it and say this is definitely not a good oil. So all of those things, we know, and I hope we're going to make that clear and also help people to understand. But by looking at these oils, I mean, if I have to now determine just by my sight which oil would be the best, I mean, this one looks old.
Yeah.
This one looks, this one
Fairly
looks
okay,
okay.
yeah.
This one looks like environmental friendly green one. So then I would say probably this one is the best. Reality is oil in your engine is like the blood in your body.
Yes.
And I can look at Shally and I can look at him and go, you know what, you look quite healthy.
Quite
I mean,
healthy,
there's already, there's guns here, I can feel it. Color is great, your hair looks like it's very healthy, so he looks healthy. But the reality is the only way I'm going to know that you're healthy is if I take some blood and do some
sample, yeah.
test. So oil also, it is the blood of your vehicle. And if you really want to know in what condition oil is or how good it is or how it's performed in the engine, you actually have to do an analysis and actually like do a blood test on it to be able to see what is going on in the engine, correct?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's correct.
Okay, so we have the functions of oil. So those 5 different functions that the oil actually has to do. So I know there's different types of oils as well. So you've probably heard of mineral oils, and you've heard of semi-synthetic and hydrocrack and fully synthetic and polyalpha-olefin and all these different things. And they might be confusing, because I've been in cases that if someone said to me, like, we only use mineral oil because synthetic oil sounds like it's synthetically made, like a synthetic arm or a synthetic leg.
Prosthetics.
So, which is not true.
Yeah.
It is just the different bases or foundations of the different oil. And today we don't want to go into too much detail about mineral oils, semi-synthetic oils, hydrocrack oils, polyalpha-olefin or fully synthetic oils, but there are very different types, and those are the types of bases that are being used.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And because of the different bases, they also have a different strength. So, but it is part of the recipe. So if I say part of the recipe, so Shally, if you can just help me, I know when they build a car, there's a recipe that they require. So we'll go into that just now and be able to establish what is important, because I think that also helps to be able to understand that oil is not just oil. So one thing that I get a lot. As I get into, we have an expo, we have technical support, which you and Tembani are quite involved with a lot, and people want to know, I'm looking for an oil, a 20W50, or a 15W40, or a 5W40, or a 5W30, or a 0W20.
Yes.
And all of those are?
Mineral-based oils.
And all of those are a mention of the viscosity.
Yes.
So if the viscosity is the 5W40 and the 0W40, what does that actually mean?
So ultimately, as we know, viscosity is just a restriction or the resistance of fluid flow. When it comes down to that is purely a SAE development. So SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, they regulate the actual grade or viscosity of the oil. But that does not mean by any chance that dictates the performance of the oil. So viscosity could anything from, like Melly mentioned, anything from mineral-based oil to a semi-synthetic, hydrocrack, or full synthetic. And all those are going through the distillation process from crude oil. So I'm not going to get into detail of that, but as long as you know that different base oils have different performance or properties within them, and the reason why we use additive packages is to enhance the properties because of the requirements from the OEM, like Melly mentioned.
Okay, so I know a confusing part for people is viscosity. So let's unpack that.
Let's make it very simple.
So let's say, so we have an oil here, and the oil is, if you look at the viscosity, a 5W40.
Yes, sir.
That is the viscosity of oil. So to make it simple, this is the flow of oil at different temperatures. So the thickness of oil at different temperatures.
Easy.
So the viscosity part, so to make it easy, we're now, I mean, this morning has been a bit chilly. Yesterday has been a bit chilly, and I always remember it, that the W is the viscosity of the oil when it's cold.
Yes.
So winter.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember the 5W as winter. So 5W is the thickness of the oil at minus 25 degrees Celsius.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thickness and the flow of the oil. So that's the oil's cold viscosity.
Yes.
Then if we go on to the 40, that is the viscosity or the thickness of the oil at 100 degrees Celsius. So it's at operating temperature.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is when the oil is cold, 5W, and the 40 is when it is
Hot.
when it's hot, when it's
Operating
in the
temperature.
engine and operating temperature.
Yes.
Right, so that is the viscosity. So if I look at the viscosity and I want to be able to establish why would I use a 15W40 instead of a 20W50 or all those different kinds of oils, and I have to look at the viscosity, and I know that 5W is the thickness of the oil when it's cold. So is 10W thicker than 5W,
Yes,
or is it
definitely, yeah.
thinner?
Yeah, so what happens with the 5W, as Melly mentioned, the cold temperature behavior of the fluid, as you increase with that 5 to a 10 or 10 to 15, the oil also becomes more viscous, which is thicker. It's almost like syrup-like. So what happens is then your cold start behavior of the fluid when you start your car in the morning has less properties or takes longer to actually lubricate the entire engine. And that is the biggest aspect of considering why you should using a 15W40 or versus a 540.
Okay, so the W part, so if it's 20W, it is much thicker when it's cold
Yes.
than a 5W.
Yes,
and a
perfect.
0W will be even thinner than a 5W.
5W, yes.
Okay, so I know, and I've heard that the biggest damage in a vehicle is at startup.
Perfect.
Why would that be?
The reason why that is, especially oils have extreme pressure additives and all those inside, but ultimately when we call it kinematic pressure, so when all the fluid has flown to the bottom of the sump, there is no lubrication on the top of your cams or the actual glands. So then what happens is, as soon as you start the engine, your vehicle is running with no lubrication. So there's actually been a test conducted on the 15W40, 1040, and the 540. The 5W, and it's quite significant, the difference in delay of how to lubricate your engine. So the 5W takes up to 5 or 7 seconds, where the 15W takes 47 seconds to lubricate the engine.
Okay, so wait,
and that
wait.
is
So you want to tell me that if I'm going to start my engine, and I want to go to work, and I have a thicker oil, so like a 20W or a 15W in my engine, and I start the engine, it's going to take, what did you say, 47 seconds for it to actually run through the entire engine. That's what you're
That's
saying.
correct, yes, yeah.
All right. So I know we put a little bit of an example together. So just to be able to show you the what we are referring to.
Just turn around.
So I'm going to just now. So we have two little tubes with oil in them. One is the 20W50 and the other one is the 0W40. And they're not in an engine, so they're not at operating temperature, so the oil is quite cold. And then we've got two bearings at the bottom. So if we turn this around, you'll see right-hand side, this side, my right,
The 20W50.
actually took much longer for the little bearing to actually fall to the bottom. And if I bring it up again, exactly the same story, and you'll see the 20W50, 20W, is much thicker than the 0W, so the bearing is moving through the oil much quicker. So if I'm going to start my engine, the 0W40 is going to move through my engine and lubricate my engine much quicker than what the 20W50 is going to do.
Correct, yes, yeah.
And that's what viscosity actually shows you. Okay, so viscosity is important. Doesn't say everything about the oil. It actually just shows you the flow or the thickness of the oil at different temperatures.
Yes, yeah.
So if we then look at all our oils, I mean, we have oils, I think just our 5W40s, we have an average of 25, 30, 35 different
5W40s.
5W40s.
Yeah.
And my question is always, but why? Why would we have so many 5W40s if a lot of people make a decision on oil based on the viscosity? So if I want to go and buy an oil and the only thing I ask for is a 5W40 or a 15W40, which is just the viscosity, why would there then be 25 or 30 different types of 5W40?
So based on the 540s, like Manisha mentioned now, the biggest aspect you have to consider is the approvals and recommendations from OEMs.
Okay, so OEMs, you're referring to an OEM, and I think I've mentioned it before as well, but just help everybody unpack it. What does OEM stand for?
So that's your original equipment manufacturer, and based on the design of the engine itself, they are in development on what is the flow parameters they need inside the engine, as well as the chemical makeup in order to be compatible with those materials that they actually use inside the engine. So that is what I mean by OEM. When they design an engine, they also list the parameters of the viscosity. So viscosity is only a parameter based on flow, but if you look at the chemical makeup that comes from an additive package, that could be your BMW Long Life 04, the new 12FE, or Mercedes-Benz 221.5. So that is the actual performance of the engine oil that you have to consider, other than just the viscosity.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, if I want to make a decision on what oil to use, the most important part to look at is what was the recommendation of the manufacturer of my vehicle. So if I have a Volkswagen, Amarok, or if I have a GTI, whatever year model, it's the most important to be able to see what Volkswagen or BMW or Mercedes-Benz, what is their specifications on that engine, because they did the research. And by that, that's why we would have 25 or 30 different 5W40s, because one will have a Volkswagen 508, 502, 505 approval, where the other one would have a Mercedes-Benz 229.5 or a 229.3 specific approval. Yes. So the additive package, what you're telling me is the additive package in those different 5W40s, are different.
Yes, correct, yeah. That's perfect.
All right, stunning. So that's the most important part. But I think what's also nice is we can make oil as complicated as possible, but here is the amazing or the important part for everybody to know. The OEM is the most important part when it comes to the correct oil for your car. But we've made it so simple. So we have an oil guide that makes sure that it doesn't matter what vehicle you drive, you just need to go and follow the oil guide, establish your vehicle, whether it's your motorcycle, whether it's your truck, whether it's your Caterpillar, whether it's your BMW, whether it's your Bucky, it doesn't matter what. Find the model, the OEM, all the different specifications, and then follow the oil guide on what is the correct oil to use for your vehicle. Here is the advantage of that. If you use our oil guide, you'll be able to find the oil with that approval. then you put the liability in Liqui Moly's hands. Because what we say is we have a product liability,
Yes,
one of the
perfect.
strongest in the world, that if you follow our oil guide, if for some reason someone made a spelling error or something in the background got mixed up, and you followed the oil guide for that specific model, you are covered by our liability. The liability responsibility that is the correct oil for your car falls on us.
Shits on us, yes, yeah.
If you make the decision on I want a mineral oil, or I want a synthetic oil, or I want a 5W40, and you do not follow the oil guide, you take the liability on yourself. So I would much rather make sure that someone else takes the responsibility, and I'm 100% sure that I use the right oil for my vehicle. But we've also put a nice app in place to be able to help with making sure that you have the right oil. So can you help and just show our audience how they can make it so simple to be able to make sure what is the right oil for,
Yes,
for their
perfect.
vehicle?
I can do that.
So here's the 1980 version of zooming.
So, perfect. If you look at my phone, there's an application. You'll see this is what it looks like. It's called Liqui Moly Advantage. You can actually go to the Play Store or... Sorry, I'm just trying to get my projection right here. So you can actually go to the Play Store or iOS store, and you can download called Liqui Moly Advantage. Just make sure Advantage is there. Otherwise, it's a German app. So one of the benefits of this app is you'll be able to see you've got a homepage, and on the homepage is latest feeds and news. But with regard to the oil guide, I quickly want to run you through how easy it is to use this. And nice amazing thing, a feature of this app is, well, it has My Garage. My Garage is a section where you can enter your own vehicle, whether your mom's, your sister's, or whoever's vehicle or bike. You can actually enter it into My Garage. And it saves the history of the fluid recommendations from Liqui Moly on a specific vehicle. So here you can see this is my car. It's a BMW 120 diesel, and there's all the components for that engine and the model. So if I go into the engine, you can see it even gives you the capacity and also the service intervals. So these service intervals are also dedicated from your owner's manual or from the manufacturers as they approved it, based on the viscosity, not the viscosity, but the approvals on the engine oils. So if I go review recommended products, you can actually see there's all the 5W30s. Most of them we have in the range. If I select one of them, the long-time high-tech 5W30, you can see it gives you a nice product image, as well as the product code. But most importantly, there is a technical data sheet that also gives you the BMW long life 4 approvals. If I can zoom in on that, and you can see that right there. Right, so there is a tested oil that's already certified and approved for your vehicle without you having to go through all the confusion of what viscosity to use. Am I using the right oil? There's so many oils. What am I doing? I'm not sure. Is there technical support available? So that is a nice thing. Also, our app and online store also has the technical support details for your reference in case you need them. So simple to use.
Thank you so much. So we make it easy. So instead of trying to analyze and establish what is the correct oil, rather use the app. The app is free to download. And what's nice is, every single time I wanted to use the oil guide, you have to go and put in the vehicle and find it again. But with the garage on the app, it keeps your vehicle. So you have the opportunity now to just go into your app and make sure that your car is always there. So if you want to go and service your vehicle, or you want to make sure that you have, you're going to go and buy the right oil at a Goldwagen or a Midas store or any of the wholesalers out there, that you know that you've got the right oil for your vehicle. So rather put the liability in our hands and use the app so that you know that you are informed of what the correct oil is, the amount of liters you would need for your vehicle, from its engine oil all the way through to your brake fluid and your antifreeze. So very easy, very simple to follow. And if you don't find it there, we have our amazing technical support, which has got Shally, got Timbani, and a lot of backup to be able to make sure that you are looked after. So we've gone through now the functions of oil, and it has to seal, and it has to cool, and it has to protect. The different types, from mineral and synthetic and hydrocrack. And viscosities, the 15W40s and the 20W50s and the 5W30s and all these different viscosities. And then came to the conclusion that the most important thing about any oil is what the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer, decided to be able to, what's going to be the best for that vehicle.
Yes, sir.
So if we then take the oils that we've put in front before, and we look at the Molygen. So this green oil is a Molygen oil, which is our Molygen. It's got a nice green fluorescent color, so a lot of people use it to actually find oil leaks. So you put it into your engine, you have a fluorescent light and you can see where the oil leaks are. Okay, that's one aspect. It's not exactly why people are using
Probably
it.
the most amazing one.
But also what's great is the color. So if it's very unique, glow in the dark, but at the same time, it is an oil that already has additives added to it. So friction modifiers, which is then the MOS2 and tungsten additive. So you have an oil with the friction modifiers already added to the oil. So if you go back to one of our previous Melly and Shally, we spoke about friction modifiers and what exactly that does in the moving parts in your vehicle. Then we have a normal 5W40, that is actually our Top Tech 4100. So this is the 5W40 from the Top Tech range. Once again, Top Tech, Molygen, Leichlaf High Tech is all these German words. That's just the name of the product. But all the other details is on the bottle that'll tell you the viscosity and tell you the OEM approvals as well. And then we have this oil that looks like someone has used it already. It is pitch black. And the reason for that is this is our 10W40 with MOS2. So that is our normal... where is our MOS2 additive? I just want to quickly show you. So that is our oil that the MOS2, where Liqui Moly is famous for, the molybdenum disulfide friction modifier, which is black in color, or there it is in its liquid form, our oil additive already been added to the oil. So that's a normal oil where the additive has already been added, and that is why it's black. So the black color doesn't say that it's old. The black color just is the effect because the additive has already been added to it. So there are many things that you can look at oil and smell it and feel it and try to establish if it's good or bad from the way that you look at it. But the reality is there's no way I'm going to know the difference of the oil unless it is going to be in my engine, it's going to be in operation, and I'm then going to take an oil sample, like a blood sample, and analyze it to be able to see how it performed under running condition. And then be able to compare it to whatever other oil and make a decision, an informed decision on what oil had the longest service intervals, what oil kept its stability the longest, what oil have been able to protect your engine the longest, what's the fuel consumption is beneficial the best, so all of these different advantages. So going into the detail of the different oil, never look at an oil trying to establish if it's a good oil or if it's an oil that maybe has come to the end of its life. These are the things that you need to do with an oil analysis. So one thing we recommend is if you're going to buy a car that you don't know how it's been looked after.
If it's a second-hand car, especially second-hand cars, it's always just amazing to do oil analysis sample, and then you can actually you can just establish the condition of the engine inside. Because like Melissa said, you can look at a great two-story house, but it doesn't mean the foundation is strong enough to support that.
Yeah, so, and if you need help with those kind of things, I mean, these are things that we help our customers to be able to make sure that they use the correct oil, and if there's any problems that occur, that there are ways for us to be able to establish. But if I get a phone call to say, my engine blew up and I think it was the oil, there's no way I'm going to know. The only way I'm going to know is if I take an oil analysis and be able to establish what was the reason for failure. So that's quite interesting. Those are the things that we get involved with every single day. But one of the things that I quickly want to actually just make it even simpler is one question that I get, and I don't know, Shally, if you get it a lot as well, is people want to know, so now that the oil price in the world have gone down, your oil prices are coming down as well.
Yeah, because it's directly connected, isn't it?
So here's the reality. So if we look at, this is base oil, so this is the foundation of oil. It goes at the oils that they would talk about on the radio, goes through a refinery process, and this is the base.
Crude oil, yeah.
So this is the crude oil. This is the part that you compare it to whatever is going to go on to the news, but in this form, it has to go through the refinery process first. So if I have to put this in my engine, what's going to happen to it?
Terrible damage. You won't believe.
So as it is here, it's useless.
It's got no performance.
So the base, if I can take an example of a comparison, you all know this is a little Lego board. So let's say we're going to build a house, and this is my foundation. So even in Lego, or even if I'm going to build a house, the foundation is one of the most important parts.
That is, yeah.
do you think there's something more important? I mean, if I want to make a building that's going to be 30 stories high, or whatever the case might be, what is going to be the most important part of that building?
Yeah, especially the foundation, because not only the actual materials they're using, but also to ensure that the criteria you're designing to will be able to fulfill that. So a foundation without any impurities is always the best way forward.
Okay, so the base of an oil is the foundation, right? So the foundation needs to be strong, but I don't know about you, but I've never been invited to a foundation warming party. Have you?
No.
Okay, so if you do have foundation warming parties, if you're building your house, please invite me. I haven't been invited to one of those. The reason why people don't have foundation warming parties is because you can't live on the foundation. This is not the part of the house that gives you joy. It's not the part of the house that does the work. And if I say the work, this is not the part that you live on. This is not the part that gives you joy. It's when you start adding the roof, and you start adding the windows, and you start adding the doors, and the plumbing, and everything else, and all the bricks, and all the details, and every possible thing that you want designed in that house. These are the things that give you joy. Those are the places where you can have your pool table. Those are the places where you can park your garage, your whatever vehicle you have. And those parts in the house are the most expensive parts. I mean, if I look at the plumbing, if I look at the different things, the bathing and the taps and those kind of things, I mean, that's quite an expensive part.
It is, yeah.
But even if all of those things are the things that give the properties to the house. And that's the same in oil.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the foundation is from the crude oil. It goes through a refining process to remove all the impurities and only extract the best quality. So I've got two base oils here, which is corresponding to a foundation that Melisha's just visually showing here, to have a better understanding of not only understanding the chemical makeup, but also understanding how it forms part of the entire picture. So in this we have called a hydrocrack. This is a group 3 oil, and here we have a polyalpha olefin. This is a group 4 oil. So these are
still foundations, Shally.
Still foundations, yeah.
So that is foundations. Like we spoke about the mineral oil, we don't want to make it confusing, but it just shows you the other bases that are available, the other foundations.
Yeah, so basically on an oil, this is between 70 and 80% of the makeup of this oil is the foundation. And that is why it's so important to ensure your foundation is strong, because not only of your acidity or the alkaline reserves of this oil, but also to ensure that the breakdown of the oil is not enhanced, to ensure that the lifespan can also be increased.
All right, so now we have the foundation. Now, the part that we've spoken about that's important for the OEM and that's different with all the different 5W40s is the additive package.
Yes.
Now, that is the additive package that consists of anti-foaming. It is all... in the additive package, it's what cools the car. It's what lubricates the car. It is all the properties of the house that gives you joy. Those are the things that come from the additive package. That is also the most expensive part of the oil. So that's why, even though the oil price comes down, the additive package with the exchange rate will 10 to 1 go up. The more complex you have the new vehicles, the additive package will also be more complex. That will be more expensive. So that's why with more advanced oils, you will also far more expensive, and it also depends on what kind of approvals you have. I mean, one example is one of the latest oils that we have in our range is a 0W16.
That's 16.
16. Not 60, 0W16. I mean, that almost sounds like a water oil. So, but the reality is, it's the viscosity that's required in some of these new vehicles. So it is much more advanced. It has a very strong foundation. It has a very strong additive package, and it's designed according to the new vehicle's tolerances, making sure that it can optimize its cooling. So all of these different things come from the additive package.
So just to touch on the additive package on specifically this one, you'll see it's a rated API SP, that's the newest API, so American Petroleum Institute, as well as the ILSAC GF6. So that's the newest requirements for low speed pre-ignition, especially on Toyota, Suzuki, those kind of vehicles, to enhance the performance of the wear protection, as well as the fuel economy of the oil cell. So you'll see this is why it's pushing 0W16 and ever growing.
Wow, so it's evolving. I mean, I know years ago you can open up your engine and I could actually change the plugs and do a couple of things. Now you open it up and it looks like You don't know where to start, what to take off, what to do. A lot of it is electronic. And with that comes the advancement of the oil. So that's why we have now oils that give far better fuel consumption, service intervals that's much longer, engines that last much longer. So all of these benefits come from the advancements as well as oil. So the foundation is important because that keeps the additive package together. But that's not the most expensive part of the oil, also not the part of the oil that does the work. So the work from an oil comes from its additive package. So that's why we have so many 5W40s, 15W40s, but they have different additive package and different approvals. So the most important part is follow the oil guide and make sure that the 5W40, the 5W30 or the 0W20 that you are going to decide on, it's going to be the one that the OEM has recommended for your vehicle so that you can get the best out of your vehicle for the longest period of time. Okay, so that is something that I know I get quite a lot because it's difficult to understand why does the price of oil go down but the price of normal oils don't go down. And I mean, I see all these different things and you have 10 oils next to each other, all 5W40s, and they have different pricing and I don't understand why. But now I hope you can know that it is to do with the additive package, and the additive package makes up the biggest part of the properties of an oil. Another question that I get, Shally, and I don't know about you, is we live in South Africa and we're a very special country. Things happen a bit different. We have bakkies, we have koeksisters, we have millies, we have runners, we have all of these things, and I'm talking not someone that's going to go fetch your lunch. I'm talking about lunch. So we have all these different things in our country, and I know the first time I was at Nampo, I had a very friendly gentleman come to me and say to me, no, but you don't understand. South Africa is not made for German oils. Here things are very, very different. And it's very, very warm in South Africa. So we can't use oils that come from over the seas. We have to use oils that can handle the temperatures and the dust and everything in South Africa. So that was always for me quite fascinating. So I want to help you to be able to understand why that is not true. So you have an operating temperature in your engine. So that's why you have a little temperature gauge that tells you if it goes higher than that, then a little warning light comes on. So I'm going to take a very simple example. So I'm going to take a 5W40 and I'm going to take can you give me a 5W40?
15.
15, yes, please, 15. So I've got two oils here. The one is a 5W40 and the one is a 15W40. So according to a lot of speculation in South Africa, vehicles are not made, they are only, if they're designed and the oils are made overseas, then they can't be used in South Africa. So here's the reality. Vehicles are made and they're going to be sent internationally all over the world to be sold. That means Dubai, that reaches very high temperatures and got a high amount of dust. This means into Canada, that reaches very, very low temperatures. This means South Africa, that has a range of Sutherland, -5, -6, -7, but can also go up into Uppington, that has got 55, 56 degrees. So there's a variety of temperatures. So cars are tested for that, and that's why the OEM gives a OEM approval to use a specific oil. But just to be able to make it simple, so we have two oils. So normally I ask, okay, so if we need to use a mineral oil, a thick oil in South Africa, because it's very warm in South Africa, where do you see thickness in the oil? And then normally people refer to 15W.
Yeah.
Must be a 15W40.
Or 20.
Or a 20W50. So I said, okay, but explain to me why. No, but it's a thicker oil. So I said, okay, so both of these oils, so let's start at the viscosity, the W. So we have a 5W with this oil, and we have a 15W. So this one is thicker when it's cold. So now I'm in Uppington. It's very warm today, and I want to start my engine. Very, very warm. So do I want, if we've just established that thicker 20W oil takes much longer for the oil to go through the engine. So on a warm day, do I want my engine to be lubricated quicker or slower?
Much quicker.
Cold, wet, warm, doesn't matter. I want my engine protected, because every moment that my engine is not protected, I have metal-to-metal contact.
Yes.
I have wear in my engine. So if I have the 15W40, which is the thicker oil at startup in my engine, it's going to take longer for the oil to run through my engine to protect it, where the 5W will lubricate my engine much quicker. But here's the thing. Now it gets to operating temperature. How long does it take you to start your car, or for your car to get to operating temperature?
Depends on a few minutes, maybe a few seconds.
So would you say your car is longer in operating temperature or at startup temperature? If you're going to drive on the farm.
Operating temperature is the best performance where your car has to adhere to. So that is why Melissa mentioned that based on these two, you look at the viscosity of them, and if you look at operating temperature of both of them, they are 40. So there's no difference between these oils. The cold start behavior of these oils is where you actually look, that has the biggest impact on the not only the wear created in the engine, but also the cold start behavior.
Okay, because you are operating your equipment in operating temperature far longer than startup. So the difference in this oil, in these two oils, that they're going to be at the same thickness when they are in operating temperatures. But the 15W40 is going to take longer to protect your engine than what the 5W40 is going to be. But when it gets to operating temperature, they're going to be the same. With the 5W40 being a synthetic hydrocrack formulation, far more advanced. Better protection, better cooling. So there are a lot more advantages with an advanced oil than what it is with a very basic 15W40 or a 20W50. But this example is just to show you that you can't look at the 15W or the 20W to establish that it's now a thicker oil for you to use in Uppington because it's warm. It actually is just the thickness of the oil at startup. And that is the section in operating where you have the biggest damage because you have that metal-to-metal friction, because a starvation of oil because the oil is not everywhere in the engine. So don't make a decision just on thickness or viscosity. Make a decision on the right oil for your engine, and that you know that you're going to have protection from the moment that you start your engine till the moment that you stop it, so that it can give you the longest engine life. Right, so that is one aspect that I get quite a lot, it is something that I think just by a little bit of an explanation, we look at it differently as well, because sometimes we just have to look at something and understand what a viscosity actually means to be able to make a better decision on what's the right oil to use.
Perfect. So based on that, if you ever wonder of which oil to use where, always just refer to our oil guide, because that is the easiest way to go forward, as well as make use of our technical support. That is why we're there to support our customers and clients, because your benefits.
So oil is not just oil, and oil is not supposed to be difficult. So don't try to become a guru in oil. Just understand the basics and make sure that you have the best oil in your vehicle to make sure that it lasts longer and has the best fuel consumption. And that decision should not be made on price, because if it is too cheap, you have to think of what the preventative maintenance that's going to be, or what is going to happen if that engine has to fail. But we are there for you if you need any help, if there's any questions that you have, any support, any help that you need to be able to make the right decision. And as Shally just mentioned, we have our oil guide, so you have that available to anyone to be able to make sure that you make the right choice, not needing to know a lot about viscosities and polyalpha-olefin or all those different kinds of lingo. You just need to follow click, and get the right oil for your vehicle.
Thanks, guys, and have a great day, and looking forward to see you soon.
Thank you very much. Have a great week.